Sometimes the ones we love the most are the first to forget us. This is a story of a mother who gave up everything for her only son, only to realize, when she needed him most, that love doesn't always come back the same way. Stay with me, because what happens next will break and then heal your heart. The first rays of sunlight slipped through the faded curtains of a small wooden cottage. Inside, an elderly woman named Margaret stirred a pot of oatmeal over the stove. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes glowed with kindness. She turned toward an empty chair and murmured, "Just a few more days, Ethan. You'll be home soon." Ethan, her only son, was her entire world. She had lost her husband when Ethan was just 10 years old. Since then, she'd done everything: scrubbed floors, washed laundry for neighbors, skipped meals, just to keep her boy's dreams alive. Now, Ethan was returning from the city with his new wife, Clara. Margaret spent the entire week preparing for their arrival. She cleaned every corner of the little house, baked her son's favorite pies, and even painted the old garden fence white again. The neighbors teased her lovingly. "Margaret, you're glowing like a young bride yourself." She laughed, her heart brimming with joy. For the first time in years, she felt truly alive. When the big day finally arrived, Margaret stood by the gate clutching a bunch of fresh daisies. A sleek black car stopped outside. Ethan stepped out, handsome, confident, but with a distracted look in his eyes. Margaret's gaze shifted to Clara, who offered a polite but distant smile. "Hello, Mrs. Margaret," Clara said softly. "Oh, no, dear," she replied warmly. "Just call me Mom." Inside, Margaret couldn't stop fussing over them, serving food, sharing childhood memories, and laughing softly at old stories. Ethan smiled, but his attention was fixed more on his phone than on her words. Later that night, as she passed by their room, Margaret heard Clara whisper, "This place is so small, Ethan. How can we stay here?" Margaret froze. Her smile slowly disappeared. That night, she heard Ethan on the phone whispering, "Yes, the papers will be ready soon. She won't know a thing." What papers? What secret? The next morning, as Margaret was tidying the table, she noticed a document sticking out of Ethan's bag. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. It was a property transfer, changing the ownership of her house into Ethan's name. "Ethan, what is this?" she asked, her voice shaking. Ethan turned pale. Before he could answer, Clara stepped forward with a cold smile. "It's just legal work, Mrs. Margaret. Ethan's managing things now. You wouldn't understand." Margaret's heart shattered. Her son's silence spoke louder than any words. That night, while everyone slept, Margaret quietly packed a small bag. She took one last look at the home she had built with love and walked away, her tears glistening under the streetlights. A car slowed beside her. The window rolled down. "Margaret? My God, it's you!" It was Thomas, her late husband's old friend, now a well-known baker in town. He drove her to his farmhouse and said gently, "You shouldn't be wandering alone. Let me help you start fresh." For the first time in years, Margaret felt safe. Margaret began working at Thomas's bakery. Her warmth drew everyone in, and soon people started calling her Grandma Margaret. Laughter and the smell of freshly baked bread filled her days again. One afternoon, a couple of customers whispered near the counter, "Did you hear? There's a fraud case in town. Some couple forged an old woman's property papers." Margaret handed her a folded newspaper. Ethan and Clara's photos stared back at her, accused of property fraud. Her heart ached, but she stayed silent. Justice at last had found its way. That evening, a familiar black car pulled up outside the bakery. Clara stepped out, eyes burning with anger. You think you've won? You ruined everything for us. Before Margaret could respond, police sirens echoed nearby. Officers stepped out of another car. Ethan followed, looking broken, defeated. Mom, he whispered, I'm sorry. Margaret looked at him, eyes full of quiet pain. You forgot me once, Ethan, but maybe now you'll remember what love really means. The next morning, the bakery was filled with laughter. Children ran around, the scent of warm bread drifted through the air, and Margaret smiled as Thomas poured her a cup of tea. Sometimes, she said softly, being forgotten is what helps you remember who you truly are. She looked out the window, the sun lighting her face with peace. The world hadn't ended. It had just begun again. Margaret's story reminds us, even when love fades, life offers a second chance. Kindness, courage, and faith can turn even heartbreak into a new beginning.